During these Christmas holidays, I'd like to do a series of videos proposing solutions to the problems we face in the United States and in the world, rather than just political criticisms. These are all going to be positive videos that recommend affirmative steps that we should take in the new year and under the new administration to turn things around. I'm going to be doing a different one each day. They'll be on my website, dickmorris.com, and I would urge you, if you miss them, just to go back and download the ones you haven't seen, because I think you'll find them really interesting. Today I'd like to talk about climate change. I approach climate change from a very different point of view of many people on the left and on the right. Is climate change happening? Clearly. Clearly the climate in the world is changing. Is that a natural cyclical process that has happened for eons and will continue for eons? Probably it is. Is any component of it caused by man-made activity and emissions of greenhouse gases? Probably they are. And can we reduce those emissions? We probably can. Can we solve the problem of climate change or mitigate it significantly? I don't know. Jury's still out on that. But I do know that while this problem is a serious one, it is not so serious that it's the only problem in the world. It's not so serious that we make the entire rest of the human race subject to the requisites of trying to deal with climate change. It's not so serious that we sacrifice national borders and national sovereignty in the name of mitigating climate change. Start with the central fact, which is the emission of carbon gases. That is a problem that has a finite shelf life. Increasingly, hydrogen cars are going to replace gasoline engine cars. The internal combustion engine is no longer going to be absolutely key to locomotion, to the process of cars. Way back when cars were invented, there was serious consideration being given to make them hydrogen-based, and the oil companies pushed like hell to make them petroleum-based and use the internal combustion engine. We currently have the technology to do everything through hydrogen. What's needed is a government program to produce the hydrogen and to help gas stations retrofit so that they can accommodate hydrogen vehicles. Once that happens, the inevitable market forces are going to drive hydrogen cars into use and increasingly solve our major problem of emissions. The second issue is static sources, that is, smokestacks and stuff that comes from factories. And here the real question is, how do we produce the electricity? Well, 20 years ago that was a huge problem, because 55 or 60% of our power was generated by coal, and only about 10 or 15% by natural gas. Now the price of natural gas has fallen because of fracking and its broad availability and large numbers of resources, and the cost of coal is not competitive, so that private power plants are switching from coal to natural gas in record numbers, and the percentage of our energy that comes from coal has now dropped below 40%, and in a few years natural gas will pass it and become the major source of power. Natural gas emits carbon as well, but half as much as coal does, and that can seriously change the whole arithmetic without in any way affecting our conduct or our global competitiveness or any of that stuff. And at the same time, the coal industry has made significant improvements in the process of coal sequestration, where you take the carbon dioxide and you literally bury it in a hole and fill it in with dirt, and it never escapes that grave, and it doesn't go into the atmosphere and doesn't affect climate change. And that technology was cut in the middle, aborted by the Obama administration in its anti-coal regulations. But if we repeal those regulations and give the industry a couple of more years, they very likely can come up with sequestration methods that can protect the coal jobs, protect the coal industry, and not hurt our environment. The real culprit here is renewable resources, because everybody worships at that mantra. Everybody says we'll wait till gas and till wind and solar and geothermal take over and generate all the power we need with no emissions and a low price. But that day, if it ever comes, is very, very far away. We have not developed the capacity to make and transmit renewable resource electricity over a large area like the United States to a point where it can begin to make significant inroads on hydro, nuclear, natural gas, and coal, the other major sources of electricity. People say, what about Denmark that's 90% solar and 90% wind? Well, yeah, when you have a country that size right in the middle of the ocean, that's going to happen. But what does that have to do with Topeka, Kansas? And the problem is that while you can generate a lot of electricity, it loses more than half of its power over the transmission lines. And there needs to be much more research on transmission lines that do not lose the energy. And until that happens, renewable resources will only be appropriate for certain areas, very few areas, and with heavy subsidies, so it can compete with market prices. The subsidies are too expensive, the areas too limited. So the environmentalists are saying, well, if you can't have perfection, let's not improve the current system. Let's not replace coal with natural gas. Let's replace it with renewable resources that are not practical, not available, and not economical. So keep our eye on the ball, reducing carbon emissions where possible, but don't destroy the whole American economy and make us non-competitive with global economies simply because of it. It is a major problem, but it is not the only or even the major problem we face. Thanks for watching.